until the power goes out, and then I'm up to date.
No, man.
Hey,
My job would be a lot less stressful without tech, that's for sure.
yes.
Oh, I'm
yes,
sorry, I didn't get your mail because it got lost. What's the problem?
exactly.
All
Exactly.
right, John, this is Christy. Thanks for your patience. We are on YouTube and you can start the meeting.
Thank you. Well, everybody, sorry again that we got started a little bit late. For those of you on YouTube, that was my fault. I was having Zoom login issues, but we got that fixed, and here we are today. Just as a matter of interest, I checked the Zoom, or I should say, pardon me, the YouTube attendance of our videos, and maybe by the time we're done, we'll be up to 50 views, but I mean, that would be the over under. It's unlikely. So tonight's night, sticking with the one important rule that we keep these to an hour. We've got 53 minutes left. What I wanted to do tonight on this agenda that we circulated was just start to vet some of the issues that we're going to be asked to examine, and make sure that everybody has an opportunity to weigh in on their thoughts, to tell me what you think, and then see if we can come to some consensus. After Dale's presentation last time, I thought he did a nice job of walking through the charter and identifying issues that he saw. Frankly, a lot of those were, I don't think they were controversial, for lack of a better phrase. However, tonight, we've got a couple of issues on our plate that I think are controversial, might not be the right word, but certainly something that we should examine in earnest. So I wanted to start, and I circulated, or I asked that it be circulated, a copy of one of the submissions we received from Erin Grube regarding two issues that were important to her. One was the term length of council members, and that's where I'd like to start tonight. And again, this is an open forum. Anybody can start, anybody can say what you want. The idea, hopefully, is that, again, we'll come to a consensus and be able to make a recommendation in terms of what we think, if anything, should happen to our charter. So just to kind of recap the issue, when we spoke with Erin and she presented the first meeting, Justin, I think you called in that meeting, is my recollection. And you may have heard the issue. If not, I'm happy to give you a more in-depth explanation to the extent that you need it. But there is, I guess the best way to put it is, like with most jobs, there's a time in which you have to learn what you're doing, how the village works, how the government runs here, and the people involved, and like anything else, there's a learning curve, right? And the concern that Erin expressed, that I recall, was two things. One, that this learning curve was pretty short because it takes you a year to get your feet underneath you, and then all of a sudden you're up for election again. And then secondly, that people, there might be a sudden or a flux of turnover because of perhaps an issue that comes up that might be controversial, and then we're subject to significant swings in terms of the direction the village is going because of maybe a particular issue causes a slate of candidates to be rushed in office, and whether that's a good thing or not. So I will tell you, I think when I did this 5 years ago, 4 years, whatever it was, I was pretty adamant that I thought they should be 2-year terms. I felt that anything that puts the power of government in the hands of the people to maybe take maybe a dated view of things, but certainly was a good thing. I will tell you, having served on council for 18 months, I'm open to discussing this further because it does take time to learn the job. And for most people, council is not a full-time position. It's something that they do every other Monday a month or whatever the timing is, and it takes time to learn the issues. So I think there's some validity to both viewpoints, and I'm going to stop talking now and turn over the floor to whoever would like to go first.
I think there's a lot of validity to having a 4-year term as well. I think that, I know we've talked about this, a couple times. I think that's probably the biggest issue is that learning curve. The other thought that I have is then you've got, council people are running for election every 2 years. And is that discouraging to some people that would want to run? Are they discouraged, and do they decide not to because they don't want to be repeating, going through an election every 2 years? If the term was 4 years, would that have an impact on people's interest in running for council, especially when you only have 7 people running for 7 seats.
Good point, Hans. Valid points. A couple of you are on mute, so who'd like to go next?
I was going to add the counterpoint of, do we have any data that shows if people roll off before their term is over? Because my only concern too is if someone wants to run for council, is 4 years too much of a commitment for some people, that we might lose people who are interested in helping, but just not giving that much time. And then do we run the risk that, they quit, and then we don't want to do special elections because those cost money. So let's just say, like, then we have more appointments we have to do. Then we'd have to look at the appointment stuff to see, are we appointing someone for, let's say they quit after 2, are we doing lots of appointments for 2 years to fill that 2-year gap? Or is it just 1? I don't know all the answers to that, but I think that's something we should also think about, is that if we lengthen it, we're going to probably run into more situations where we're going to have appointments. And is that something we need to kind of back into as well as part of this?
Catherine, I can address that because I went through that process. So when I served on council, there was an election. I don't even remember the fellow who was reelected, but then within 6 months he'd moved to Denver and packed up, and the timing was that I'd done the presentation on charter review, and so I decided to apply for the position, and it was an interview with the other members of council. So that was the process I went through. I don't believe there was a special election. I don't believe the charter calls for a special election.
Yeah, I was appointed the same way. So that tells you right there, there's 2 of us here who've served on council. The way we originally got on council was through an appointment, and then ran for election. Did you run too, John?
No, 18 months was enough.
Okay, so I was appointed with about 6 months left in the term from a council person who moved about 50 feet away, but was in Moreland Hills. And so I filled out the rest of his term and then ran and then did 1 additional term. So I don't know that there's any way to avoid life intervening here, whether it's a 2-year term or a 4-year term. But I do think, obviously, if we address the lengthening the terms and we decide to go with 4 years, we are going to have we're going to have to address the same issue we have with the mayor, which is, what are you going to do with a vacancy? So on the issue, since I'm talking already, on the issue of 4 years, I do think that there is I've moved a little bit on this. I think if you'd asked me 2 months ago, I would have said, no, just keep them at 2 years. But the more I've looked into this and thought about it and looked at what the composition of council is over time, I do think that there's a lot of merit to a 4-year term for a couple of different reasons. One is so I don't know if this has been addressed directly, but I would just say, from my perspective as a former council member, every election, if there's turnover in the election, it's not just that you have new people on council, you have new people who are on each of the different committees, which is where a tremendous amount of the work gets done. And that shuffling of people on the committees necessarily impacts the people who've already been on council, and then they run again. It's going to impact what committee assignments they have as well. So it's not just the new people who come in who have to relearn something. It's typically council members who've been serving for a while. So for instance, for me, I was on planning and zoning as a council representative, and then I got appointed to BZA as a council representative. And they were similar, so it wasn't completely new subject matter, but it was much different process. The issues were different that were presented. And so the 6 months that I'd spent learning planning and zoning, then I had to basically start anew when I got on BZA. And that is something, when you see turnover in council, just to think about that, it extends beyond the people who are brand new on council. It actually can affect the rest of council as well.
Yeah, and those are two pretty heavy lifts, Justin. I mean, if you're going to be on 2 committees, I mean, that's a lot to those.
That's why I did only a term additionally. It was a lot of work.
I had the cemetery, little lighter lift.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. And the other thing is that when you eventually, once these things are staggered, right? So I think you'll have, it'll be 2, 2, and 3, right? That's how the elections will go in terms of open seats.
I thought it was 4 and 3.
Yeah, I thought it'd be 4 and 3 too.
Oh, okay. Okay, must have missed that somehow. Okay, well, regardless, I think that that is a much better model for the elections themselves, because I'm all about expanding democracy and I want people to vote and people to run who want to participate. But there is something to be said for an overabundance of candidates. And I think that when you have 7 seats up at any given time, by necessity, you're going to have at least 7 candidates, but you also are very likely to have somewhere close to a multiple of that, which is a lot of people running for a lot of seats. And it is difficult, as somebody who now votes in these elections, exclusively votes and is not running for anything, to know exactly where each candidate stands on something. If you've got four seats open and you've got 6 candidates or 7 candidates for those 4 seats, it's much easier for your average voter to actually provide an intelligent vote and get input and talk to those people who are running and get a sense of what they want to accomplish on council. So those are my 2 thoughts and why I'm leaning in favor of supporting 4-year terms.
Hey, Catherine, what a great addition.
You're on mute because
She's the
she's
youngest member.
screaming.
What's her
Yeah.
name?
This is Sophie.
Hi, Sophie.
Sophie will be 1 at the end of this month.
All right.
Oh, hi, Sophie.
Not even believe it.
I know,
That's
right?
great.
And I haven't held her yet. Oh, Justin, to your point, I do. I think that the staggering of the terms is what persuades me that the 4 years is the right way to go on this. And the reason for that is I think that that mitigates Catherine's concern about appointments, because every 2 years, you're still going to be having some election mechanism, right? If I'm understanding correctly. So you can still, if somebody does leave after 18 months or after however long, you still have that every 2-year mechanism where you can have that seat replaced. So I think that sort of corrects for that issue, which I think is valid, Catherine. And I do think that the idea of cycling people every 2 years will allow the continuity in the committees and in the council, and allow sort of mentorship by council people that have been there before to kind of show the newbies the ropes before they have to be concerned with running again. So I think that that'll sort of strengthen the experience of all the public servants, not only the new people, but it'll put the experienced council people in a position where they can comfortably help somebody, and they're not sort of in the same wave that the new people are too. So
I think it also allows for, there's always concern that if the longer you have terms, like the harder it is for like the people to kind of change the guard if they want to. If it's every 2 years and you get a slew of candidates in that is not really serving the people, then like they have a chance to start voting people out on a regular basis, as versus, a huge swath of candidates comes in for 4 years, you can't do anything to change it. This will allow at least every 2 years for there to be fresh blood brought in.
Yeah,
fresh blood brought in.
That was my concern, and because if you had, say, a controversial issue, and for the love of God, I can't think of one here that would come up, but if you did have that, theoretically,
Probably have something to do with new construction.
well, fair enough. All right.
I can think of several that are coming down the pike.
Listen, you guys, fair enough. But I guess what I would want to
Jaywalking. Sorry, I'm sidetracking.
Jaywalking, the hot
Alcohol
blood
in the park.
Yes. Meters. We're putting in meters. But my point is that that's what ultimately persuaded me, was the idea that you couldn't lose all your institutional knowledge in one election, right? I mean, that's where I summed up. So,
Right.
I'm not going to ask people to vote tonight, because I don't think that's the way we should do this. But what I'm going to ask, it sounds like all of us are in favor of staggering terms, making them 4-year terms, and then maybe what we'll do is we'll draw up that as part of our report, and long before that is submitted to the village council, everybody here will have a chance to review it and see it and let us know what they think. And then obviously, we've got some more meetings ahead of us. So to the extent that other people who feel strongly about this want to present opposing viewpoints, we still have time to consider those as well. So I thought this was going to be a lot more vibrant discussion. I don't know that that's a good thing or a bad thing. I just, at the beginning of this process, I had a very similar approach to Justin, and I think I've been persuaded otherwise. And it seems like everyone else agrees too. So the second item that I,
Can I add
go ahead,
something?
please, Ann.
If we did go, if this was approved and it was implemented, how does that work? I mean, who is responsible for determining which positions are going to be on the next election? Somebody obviously that's currently in office is going to have to stay in for another couple of years. How soon would this take effect? How does it work out logistically? Or is that something that and obviously it's not for us to decide, but
No, it's a legitimate question. And I think that the short answer is going to be, that's going to be a Dale Markowitz issue, right? And to make
Okay.
sure that we stagger everything and work with it. I'm trying to remember, and I should know the answer to this. I remember we filed a report. I don't believe that our initiatives go directly on the ballot. I think they have to be approved by council first, is my recollection. But again, I should refresh and know that process a little better, and we'll next time. So,
well, yeah, there's
I
time,
think that's
obviously
right.
time to figure it out.
yeah, we do. But
Yeah.
I just don't remember. And
That's okay. That's
yeah.
okay. I
It wouldn't
tried-
hurt if we
yeah.
had an idea of how to do it, that if we could always make a recommendation, being like, as
No.
part of this, we thought this might be a great way of doing it. But obviously feel free to ignore us and do what you think is appropriate.
No,
but-
Catherine, I intend to put something in front of council that is a firm, almost a draft piece of legislation as part of our report, right? Not that we think this is a good idea, you guys figured out, but this is what we think you should do. This is how we think it should look. And this is what we think the effect should be, because it's going to be, if adopted, a permanent alteration of the charter. And I think we should give some firm guidance there. So, all right. Okay, and any other, I should have polled the folks, any other issues that, or any other comments on this particular issue you want to discuss? All right, well, let's move on to the second one. So the second one is I guess it's a what if situation, right? I mean, I can't imagine that this is something that anyone would ever realistically encompass happening. But, if you read what Aaron wrote, there's an issue with succession with regards to the mayor. What happens if the mayor ducks out early and does not complete his or her term? What do we do? Because at that point in time, the president of council would ascend to the mayor's office. And do we want to discuss how long, whether we should make that a permanent thing until the regular election cycle comes up, presuming, of course, that the president of council actually wants the job, or do we want to institute a process or a procedure that allows maybe a special election or sets a limit on there, or something along those lines? To me, it's an interesting issue. I don't know that it will ever come up, but it is an interesting issue, and it's one of those issues that if it does come up, someone will say, "Gee whiz, I wish we would have dealt with this years ago." So I'm glad it's on our plate now. So, thoughts?
My initial thought is that if I understand correctly, basically the charter would have the president of council becoming the mayor for the duration of the term.
Correct.
And I think that at least that should be changed till the next election,
Okay.
which I would think it wouldn't necessarily, in my eyes, have to be a special election, but at that 2-year cycle, that the mayor would then not be appointed. You wouldn't have the council president serving as the mayor for more than 2 years, assuming that the mayor, something happened the day after the election.
Correct.
So you'd still only have that patchwork for 2 years. So I think I sort of feel like that's like the basement of where I think we need to change, because that makes a lot of sense to me that this is a real issue.
Agreed. Catherine, Justin, Ann, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think we should avoid a situation where we make it an election, make it a selection option for the council president. I feel like that's part of the job description. So if something happens to the mayor, like you're the vice president, like you're next in line and you have to serve, like otherwise, then what happened? Then we have to think about, okay, well then what if the next person decides not, like, I don't think that's something that we should even be thinking. If they don't want the job, they can choose to just quit in general. And then of course, regular succession goes from there. But like, I don't think we should make that an option. I think it's, if something happens to the mayor, the council president steps in But then at the same time, I don't think they should serve both positions. I think that that's a conflict. So I think that at that point, then there should be succession, like automatic, there's someone next in line for the council, and that gets put in again until the next council election, which would be the next, whether it's, then the following year or 2 years. But special elections cost money, and everyone's really sensitive about how much stuff costs these days. I think we should avoid things that cost more money.
Our decision
I agree.
on, our decision on the council terms very much drives for me the answer on this one. You can imagine a scenario where you've got a mayor who steps down, council president steps up. Now you've got a vacancy on council that has to be appointed. So now you've got 2 elections you have to have. If you're under the same regime, it's got to be under the next special election. Then very easily in another 6 months, you could have another council member step down before the end of their unexpired term. Then you have to have another special election. It seems to me to be much cleaner, particularly if you're talking about extended council terms, to do it at the 2-year normal cycle to fill out the rest of the unexpired term, as opposed to potentially a series of special elections related to council, mayor, or whatever. It really could get ugly if things went wrong.
I also think there's a lot of merit in, Catherine, your idea that the council president is the person who fills the mayoral vacancy, because the council president is not only an elected position to the council, but it's also an elected leadership position in the council. So presumably this person would have the characteristics that at least the council would feel were sort of the top leadership merits, because there's of course people that are on council that are excellent council people, but maybe wouldn't be the best president of council, that they have a great voice and they're a great, body member, but they're not necessarily the one that should preside over the council. So I think that you avoid having just any single council person, at the whim of the council or at the whim of the council president being made mayor. In that case, you have somebody who's sort of been double vetted. They've been elected to the council, and then they've also been elected president of council.
I agree.
Okay, well, I haven't offered my thoughts, but I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that, if you step down, look, if you're going to be president of council, you have to understand that comes with the job, that there's the potential you will ascend to be the mayor, period, end of story. And if you're unwilling to do that, then you should perhaps not run for president of council.
Right.
Exactly.
And then the second point is I think special elections get messy and they are expensive. And I think just moving it up to the next election cycle, making it a mandatory would certainly protect democracy and also keep the wheels of government moving. So those are my thoughts.
We also don't have a particularly high election turnout as it is during regular elections. And so I would be concerned with a special election that we wouldn't get enough participation to really get someone in there who deserves to be in there, just because they're the best choice of the 15 people who elected to go to the special election. And that's not what this is.
Right.
No, that's fair.
Good point.
Go, Ann, I'm sorry, did you have something else?
No, I said that's a good point.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, and maybe this was sort of already intrinsic and everything, but the other advantage that this would have by fixing it on the council president and fixing sort of a succession would be that you only ever, in this circumstance, you only have to replace one person by appointment. And it is an appointment to, I don't want to say the lowest spot, but it is sort of the lowest spot on that totem pole. So your appointment, your non-democratically elected person, is in the lowest slot as far as, power, I guess.
All right. Anyone else have
I
thoughts
think
on
of
this?
course they don't all quit, but in that case, we're kind of in a
Then we're
not great
screwed.
situation anyway.
Yeah. Well, then
Then it
that's,
just becomes the Charter Review Commission, right?
yeah.
Anarchy.
Wrong. I'm not going. No. Once was enough. No. Yeah. Well, if that happens, there's nothing the Charter Review Commission can do to fix that to begin with, right?
Right.
So, unless you want to institute something like if everyone resigns at once, we seize their property, incentivize them to stay. But look, those were the two big issues I had tonight. I thought, frankly, and this is on me, I thought there's going to be a lot longer discussion, but hey, that's great. You know, efficiency's good. So, what I wanted to do now was to kind of open up the floor to see what other issues that you wanted to explore at subsequent charter review commission meetings. You know, if somebody's got a real hot button issue, you can either, you know, we can kind of explore it now, we can table it to another meeting, or you can email me and I'll put it on the agenda if you want to think about it going forward. I mean, really, that was kind of my plan for the night.
I'm going back through the charter real quick to see if there's anything else that jumped out at me.
I was gonna say, of course, I left my noted charter somewhere. I don't remember.
I don't have anything, John, but I'm willing to discuss anything that anyone else has.
Well, go ahead.
Were we gonna talk about, not so tonight, but I'm assuming on your agenda at some point were the comments about the experience and like criteria of the director of finance?
Yeah.
That was an issue that Dale brought up. Okay,
Yeah. Why don't we table that? That'll be issue number 1 next time.
that's fine. I just, I remember that being, I feel like that's actually like a substantive conversation rather than
Yeah.
some of these others are just kind of cleanups.
Well, then why don't we do this? We're gonna end early. And what I'll ask everyone to do is to go through the materials they receive from Dale Markowitz, other materials they have, and frankly, their own memory and common sense. And if there's anything that you feel you'd like to discuss further, send it to me and I'll put it on the agenda next time.
Director of finance and qualifications for that role would be on my list for
Yeah.
sure.
That'll be number 1, Ann.
Good. That was a big standout to me when I first read this.
Sure.
Having a son who's a CPA and a CFA.
Yeah. Well, tell him to submit his resume. Right?
Oh, no, no. I think they're headed out to Colorado.
Oh, well.
They live in Chicago. I think they're going to head to Colorado.
Oh, rats. Well,
I know. Tell me.
that's a heck of a drive.
Oh, it would be a flight. Believe me, not a drive.
I will tell you, I've done that drive. Believe it or not, I put all my kids in our minivan and we called it going full Griswold, and we
Yeah.
threw the kids in and drove
I love
across
it.
the United States. Yeah, and then went to Colorado for 10 days or something. Had a great time.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is my dream, but my husband is reluctant.
What, to go to Colorado?
I would like to go anywhere out of my house
Oh,
sometime in the next year, and also hold Catherine's baby. And yeah, but I want to do a full West Coast road trip. But my husband is like, why would we do that to ourselves with 3 children?
See, this is what's
so,
funny
you know.
about, so Emily and I have been friends for a really long time and our families are friends, but like her husband and I are like the same person, and my husband and Emily are like the same person because my husband wants to do all that. So maybe what we do is that
Right.
Matt and I fly out there and meet you, and you guys take all 5 kids.
We'll
Yeah,
camp the whole way, right?
I'll go along. I'll watch the kids because I've thought about doing the same thing too, but I was going to fly to Denver and then do a loop out on the West Coast for a couple weeks, but I'll meet you out
You're
there. and I'll-
100% invited.
Yeah, I'll supervise the kids. You guys can go have fun.
Oh, that'd be great. Very.
I think we have a plan, and we need to put this in the charter so it's official.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get our hands on the Chagrin Falls bus or something. Get everybody's kids in there, right?
Right? I feel like we could get a good turnout for free babysitting.
Babysitting is worth its weight in gold. There's no question about that. So, well, guys, anything else for the good of the order? Well, then everybody have a nice night. Please email me your comments in addition to the one that we've already identified if you have any further ones, and we'll do our next meeting. And I don't remember the date, but I think it's 2 weeks. So until then, everyone stay safe.
Yes, thank you.